A surgeon says that full body transplants could become a reality within just 2 years. This is Sergio Canavero, who's a doctor in Turin, Italy, has drawn up plans for transplanting a living person's head onto a donor body and says that the procedures required to actually do this are not that far off. He's hoping to put together a team to look into how to do this at a meeting in June with neurosurgeons in Maryland, neurological surgeons in Maryland. He recently published a broad outline of how it would be performed, and he says that this could be a way to prolong the lives of people affected by terminal diseases. Quote, "If society doesn't want it, I won't do it. But if people don't want it in the US or Europe, that doesn't mean it won't be done somewhere else. I'm trying to go about this the right way, but before going to the moon, we want to make sure people will follow you." And there's actually quite a history of transplantation of instances where people had a new appendage and they hated it and they had it removed. And we're now, as medical science is getting closer and closer to doing things we've never been able to do before, that will have a significant emotional impact. A lot of the conversation, Lewis, has to be along the lines of figuring out the psychological burden of emerging from general anesthesia with an entirely new body.
Yeah, and there's so much to talk about here. I mean, who selects, which bodies are used? How do you preserve that body after the person dies? The procedure, the dangers, and the mental repercussions afterwards. I mean, it's so mind-boggling.
It's massive. The what needs to be determined is massive. And the other thing we have to think about is that medical ethics boards would be very unlikely to approve experiments in primates to test whether this works. And I can't imagine that we're going to go straight into doing this to humans. So I don't really know how that's all going to happen. And I must admit, when I first saw the headlines of this, I thought maybe that we were talking about a transfer of consciousness to a new body. But we're actually talking about transplanting the head with the brain and the consciousness to a new body. And there are a lot of surgeons who are not as convinced as Canavero that we're so close to being able to do this medically. And the big thing is actually reconnecting the spinal nerves to make them work again. And without going into any gruesome detail, I think most of our audience can imagine how just transplanting the head wouldn't necessarily give you all the movement that you need.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking extremely delicate procedure here. And I imagine the only experimentation you will be able to do, at least in this country, would be with someone who has died and then someone who is perhaps about to die. And I mean, I guess those are the only circumstances in which you'd be doing this anyway. But like you said, I don't think it would be right to experiment with primates like this.
And some see this entire concept as vile experimentation. Others see it as kind of pushing humans towards significantly increased lifespans. Obviously, there are religious people who will be against anything like this, period. But even among the non-religious, this is pretty controversial stuff, and understandably so because of the psychological implications, which would be massive.
Yeah, but can you imagine? I mean, some young, healthy person dying from brain cancer and some other person being able to use their body who might have liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, some other type of horrible disease.
Send me your thoughts on this. Very, very controversial stuff. But at the same time, 500 years from now, will this be even considered remotely controversial? Maybe not. History has a way of working out that way. On today's bonus show, Saharan dust is fueling the Amazon. Have we been wrong about peanuts and infants all along? And Lewis will give us a beer review of what he has told me is one of the best beers he's ever had. Get access to the bonus show, davidpakman.com/membership. A lot happening on the bonus show, great member benefits, and you're supporting the work we do, which is always a good thing.